And so here they are, your second lesson of the day from us, that there are three primary sensory cognitive functions. They're going to impact vocabulary development. They're going to impact reading and spelling and comprehension. They'll impact math, believe it or not. Phoneme awareness, and I think most people know what that is now. Phoneme awareness is the ability to perceive sounds within words. And our Pat Lindamood is probably one of the first people in the United States to make a contribution that there are individual differences in the ability to perceive sounds within words. At the time that she was talking about it and I got involved with her, hardly anybody knew about this factor. And now I'm happy to say that people do understand what phoneme awareness is. So we're calling that PA. Here's kind of the new guy on the block, and we have some articles that are going to be coming out about this. And this is called symbol imagery, and it's the ability to auditorily perceive and visually image sounds and letters within words. So for example, if I say FIP, if you just want to experience a little bit of it, what letters do you see? Show me with your fingers how many letters you can picture. FIP. I can't see all of you out in VC land, but I'm assuming, you know, I could click in at any moment and go to your site to see if you are, in fact, participating. Yes. If I change FIP to FAP, can you see that you can actually visualize which letter changes? The I changes to an A. That's symbol imagery. Concept imagery, I've been talking about this for many, many, many years now, and this is the fairly popular now visualizing and verbalizing program that's really used, seems in a lot of places, which is a thrill to me. This is the ability to create an imaged gestalt, which means the whole, from oral and written language. So if I say, this is different than symbol imagery, if I say the white horse, and I'm throwing color and movement in there so you can picture it better, but if I say the white horse gallops along in the green grass, comes to a small brook and jumps over it, and then falls down on his front legs, you should be able to picture that. Now that's just not one short image, but it's a lot of images coming together. So as we are looking at our students that come in for diagnostic testing, like that girl right there, what we are asking ourselves is, what is her level of phonological awareness? What is her level of symbol imagery? And what is her level of concept imagery? And I'm going to show you how we're doing that. We're trying to look at the core of what might be causing the weakness. Reading requires these specific sensory cognitive functions, but it also requires specific component parts. Again, one of the things that we would talk about endlessly is that people would say, and this is in the days when I was walking to school over the snow for 5 miles a day. This is that far back. This was in the day when people would say, oh, there's only that children are all different, and so you can't do the same thing. Well, it's true, one size does not fit all, but as you're going to see, reading is composed of component parts. And so in the field of reading, what we tend to do is that we pick up on a popular philosophy. Like right now, it's been popular to teach phonological awareness, and we're happy about that. But that's not the only piece in reading. And 10 years ago, it was popular to not teach any phonological awareness, but only teach students to guess at words. And so we think that reading is more than just one of those. It is a combination of those. So I'll tell you frankly that I was getting a master's degree in reading, and I came back to my office weeping one day because what I was being taught as someone going out to teach other children to read, I was being taught that the only thing I really need to do was to teach students to guess at words based on the context that they were reading. And it was really very disturbing to me because I knew, because I'd worked with so many students before then, I knew that that wasn't the case, that there were other parts. And so these are the parts. You have to have students that are able to sound out a word, and many years ago, that was how students were taught. They were taught sounds and letters, phonemes and graphemes, and taught to try to sound words out as the primary strategy for learning to read. And of course, many children couldn't learn to read. And the reason for that is that they had weakness in both phonological awareness and symbol imagery, as we now know from the research that we've been doing. But no one knew that then. And so they would try to teach the one-size-fits-all, that teach all students to sound out words, and some children just couldn't get it, and they were very poor readers. And then along came Dick and Jane and Spot. Does anybody remember Dick and Jane? Raise your hand if you remember that. That was no phonological awareness, essentially. It was all what is known as word recognition. It was just remembering sight words. And of course, some children did well with that and others did not. And so we were right back to where we started. We still had students who didn't learn to read. Then when I was getting my master's in reading, they didn't do either of those. The only thing that they did was teach students to guess at words, and they'd blank out every fifth word. And it was a contextual guessing game. There were a lot of books written on that, Frank Smith and Ken Goodman, and I was really bothered by it because I knew that if I was in a situation as a student and I had if I had weakness in any of these, then at some point that weakness was going to rear its head when I was trying to guess. For example, I was working with students who were dyslexic, and if they were reading on the page, that many words might be words they didn't know. And so they didn't have any context to guess from. And so I came back and put this Venn diagram together. It's a mathematical diagram. And initially I wasn't smart enough to know that there was something surrounding all of these circles. So I just thought it was the three inner circles. And it was actually a parent that I was working with who said, you know, that's a mathematical diagram. It's called Venn, V-E-N-N. But he said, you don't have it complete yet. He said there has to be a circle that goes around all of those in order to be logically matching that mathematical equation. And I said, oh, wow, well, the circle that goes around all of those is comprehension. So you have that in front of you, I believe, as a handout. And if there's nothing that you take out of this morning that you spend with us except that, then I'm happy. Because I want you to get that reading is component parts, not just one strategy. So here's the statement that all individuals are different, but the component parts are the same. So if you have a student who has a strength in word attack skills, and if you thought, well, I'll just develop reading by teaching them better word attack skills, that student will not be a reader because the other circles are not intact. Are you all getting that? You see that? You have to go after all of these. But let's just say that you have a student that has weakness in word attack, but is memorizing words a little bit and gets pretty much better on the page. And you say, well, that student does better visually, so I'm not going to come in with anything that would be auditory or phonetic. That student is not going to be a reader like you and I are if every time they're on the page and they come to a word that they haven't memorized, and if they can't sound that word out or they sound it out wrong, then those students are going to have their comprehension impacted. So you have to develop all of these circles.